The first thing Nathan Bell saw when he came over the ridge was the gate. Not the house, not the barn, not his mother's chimney smoke rising through the sycamores, the gate. It should have been hanging crooked by one hinge, the way it had hung the morning he left for the war. It should have been warped, gray, and half swallowed by weeds. Instead, it stood square. New oak rails, fresh pegs, a latch fitted clean enough that it caught the sun. Nathan stopped in the road with his kit bag cutting into his shoulder and the old army coat sticking to his back. For 3 years he had carried one picture of home in his head. A failing farm, a tired woman, fields gone wild because one son had left and one mother could not fight winter, debt, weather, and loneliness with 2 hands. He had prepared himself for ruin. He had not prepared himself for repair. Beyond the gate, the front field was cut and stacked. The kitchen garden stood in straight rows, green and heavy. The henhouse roof had new shingles. The smokehouse door, the one his father had promised to fix before he died, hung tight on black iron hinges Nathan did not recognize. Even the old sorrel mare was alive, not just alive, brushed, fed, standing in the shade like an animal that still belonged to a place. Nathan took 1 step forward, then stopped again. Because somewhere between the road and the porch, the relief turned sharp. A farm did not save itself. Somebody had put hands on this land. Somebody had carried water, split rails, hauled stones, sharpened blades, patched roofs, cut hay, turned soil, and walked through rooms Nathan had spent 3 years dreaming about. Somebody had been here long enough for the place to start answering to him. His mother came out of the wash house with a basket on her hip. For a moment, Rebecca Bell did not move. Then the basket dropped. Eggs cracked in the dust, and she crossed the yard faster than Nathan had seen her move since he was a boy. "Lord have mercy," she whispered. She touched his cheek with both hands, then his brow, then the sleeve of his coat, as if making sure the war had not sent home only the shape of him. "You're late," she said. Nathan tried to smile. "Only by 3 years." Her face broke then, and she pulled him into her arms. For a long breath, he was not a soldier. He was not a man who had slept in mud, eaten beside cannon smoke, or watched good boys vanish into fields that would never remember their names. He was only her son. Then he opened his eyes over her shoulder and saw the new stone step below the porch. His voice changed. "Mama," he said, "who fixed this place?" Rebecca Bell looked toward the lower pasture, and that was when Nathan understood that the answer had a name. She made coffee before she told him. That was her way. Bad news, good news, strange news. None of it entered Rebecca Bell's kitchen without coffee first. The cabin smelled of cornmeal, beeswax, and dried apples. The walls had been rechinked. The draft by the east window was gone. A plank in the floor that had always complained under Nathan's heel no longer made a sound. He noticed every repair like an accusation. His mother set a cup in front of him and sat down with both hands folded around her own. "His name is Jonah Wren," she said. "Not was. Is." Nathan heard that small word and felt his jaw tighten before he could stop it. Rebecca saw it. "He came here the first hard week of November," she continued. "Had a bedroll, a broken hat, and a limp he tried to hide. Asked if I had work enough for supper. And you let him in. I let him split wood. That's not the same thing." "No," she said. "It was not." She told it plainly. Jonah Wren had arrived at dusk with frost already silvering the fence posts. He was not young, but he was not old either. Mid-40s, maybe. Thin in the way men get when they have been traveling too long. His coat was worn through at the elbows, and the pack over his shoulder had been mended so many times the patches looked older than the cloth. He did not ask for charity. He asked for work. Rebecca gave him the woodpile because the axe stood in plain view, and the barn door stood open behind it. A woman alone learned to think about distance, weapons, exits, and the difference between kindness and foolishness. Jonah split the wood, then he stacked it by size. Then he hauled kindling to the kitchen door without being asked. In the morning, Rebecca found the trough thawed, the pump handle wrapped in burlap, and the loose board on the washhouse step nailed flat. "He do all that for breakfast?" Nathan asked. "He did it because it needed doing." There was something in her voice when she said it. Not defense, not apology, recognition. Jonah stayed one more night because sleet came in. Then one more because the mare went lame. Then 1 week because the north fence had dropped in 3 places, and winter was coming down the mountain faster than one woman could work against it. By the end of that week, he had asked Rebecca where she kept the old auger. By the end of the next, he had repaired the springhouse door. By Christmas, the smokehouse held meat enough for the first time since Nathan's father died. Nathan listened without speaking. He heard the story under the story. The stranger had not arrived as a blessing. He had arrived as a risk. And then, one task at a time, he had become something riskier, necessary. Rebecca told Nathan about January. That was the month the farm almost failed anyway. A storm came down and stayed 3 days. Snow sealed the lane. The lower creek froze over. The mare's legs swelled hot, and the banknote on the table was due before spring planting. Nathan's father had borrowed against the West Meadow years earlier, a small loan at the time. Interest had made it bigger. War had made money scarce. Widowhood had made everything heavier. A man from town had already offered to buy the West Meadow for half its value. "He said I could stay on the house plot," Rebecca said. Nathan's hand closed around the cup. "He said that. He did. And Jonah was in the barn when he came. Heard enough." That night, Jonah brought out an old ledger from his pack. Not money, not a deed, a ledger. He had once run a small place of his own in eastern Kentucky. 10 acres, 2 mules, a cider press, and a stand of corn he still spoke of as if the weather had stolen it yesterday. Fever took his wife. A fire took the barn. Debt took the land. After that he walked. He knew what a man sounded like when he was trying to buy somebody's desperation. So while Rebecca slept, Jonah made a list. What could be sold without killing the farm? What could be planted early? What tools could be repaired instead of replaced? Which neighbors owed Rebecca's late husband favors and had counted on her being too proud to call them in? The next morning, he took the old handcart to town in ice that cut through his boots. He came back after dark with seed, lamp oil, 2 sacks of feed, and a promise from the miller to pay cash for spring repairs to the mill sluice. "How?" Nathan asked. Rebecca looked down at her coffee. "He sold his watch." Nathan did not know why that struck him harder than the fences. Maybe because a watch was not much. Maybe because for a man with no home, a watch was proof that time still belonged to him. Maybe because Jonah had spent the last thing he owned on land that did not carry his name. "He never told me," Rebecca said. "I found out from Mrs. Bale at the store." "What did you do?" I asked him why, and he said a watch was no good to him if he had nowhere he meant to be. Nathan stood and walked to the east window. The West Meadow lay beyond the orchard, high and golden in the late light. Cut clean, fenced clean. Not sold, still Bell land. But the name sat strangely in his mind now. Bell land, saved by Wren hands. For the first time since he saw the gate, Nathan felt something colder than surprise. He felt replaced, not because Jonah had taken anything cruelly, because he had given too much. It is an ugly thing to come home from war and find a stranger has been braver in your kitchen than you were in your leaving. Nathan hated himself for thinking it. Then he thought it anyway. "Where is he?" he asked. Rebecca did not answer quickly. "Lower field," she said at last, "clearing stone from the turnip ground." Nathan crossed the yard without taking off his army coat. The lower field sloped toward a dry creek bed. A man was there with a crowbar and a stone boat, prying rocks from the soil and dragging them toward a low wall that had not existed when Nathan left. Jonah Wren looked up before Nathan spoke. He was narrower than Nathan expected, brown from sun, gray at the temples. His left leg held stiff when he shifted his weight, but he did not lean on the crowbar like a man asking pity. He waited. Men who have lost things know how to wait for judgment. Nathan stopped 10 paces away. "You Jonah Wren?" "Yes. My mother says you've been working this farm." "I have. She says you fixed the gate." "It needed fixing." "The smokehouse. Door was bad." "The spring house. Rats were getting in." "The west meadow." Jonah's eyes moved once toward the upper field, then back. "Your mother kept that meadow," he said. "I only helped her keep it." Nathan heard the correction. He disliked how much he respected it. "She says you sold a watch." Jonah's face changed then. "Only a little. Enough. That was mine to sell. For a farm that wasn't." Jonah looked at the ground a moment. "No," he said. "For a woman who was being crowded by men who knew she was alone." That line should have ended the anger. It did not. Anger does not always care what is fair. Sometimes it only cares that it has been left standing with nowhere to go. Nathan looked at the stone wall, at the tight fence beyond it, at the rows turned straight as scripture, and felt the shame of every good thing he had not been here to do. "You planning to stay?" he asked. Jonah did not soften the answer. "I was waiting to see what you wanted. And if I want you gone? Then I will pack before supper." No argument. No claim, no wounded speech about all he had done. Just the plain answer of a man who had learned not to hold too tightly to any door. That was the moment Nathan almost said it. He almost told Jonah Wren to leave, not because it was right, because it would have made the farm simple again. Mother, son, land, name. But then the sorrel mare called from the upper pasture. Nathan looked toward the sound and saw her moving strong on a leg that should have gone useless in winter. He saw the garden his mother could not have planted alone. He saw the smokehouse that would carry them through cold months. He saw the new gate, standing square at the road, and understood that every repair on this farm was a sentence. Each one said. Someone stayed. Nathan swallowed. "What happened to your place in Kentucky?" he asked. Jonah's mouth tightened. "Gone, family, gone. Where were you headed when you came here?" A small pause. "Nowhere in particular. And now?" Jonah looked past Nathan up toward the cabin, not greedily, not longingly in a way that begged, just as a man looks at a light he has stopped pretending he does not need. "Now," Jonah said, "I finished the stones before dark." Nathan almost laughed, not because it was funny, because it was the first honest answer he could bear. He took off his coat, laid it over the fence, and walked to the stone boat. Jonah said nothing. Nathan picked up the other side. Together, they dragged the load toward the wall. That first afternoon, they worked badly together. Nathan moved too fast. Jonah saved his knee. Nathan lifted with pride. Jonah lifted with patience. They knocked one rock loose from the wall, cursed at the same time, and then both pretended not to hear the other. By sundown, they had repaired more silence than stone. At supper, Rebecca put 3 plates on the table. No one remarked on it. The next morning, Nathan woke before first light and found Jonah already in the barn. That annoyed him. So he woke earlier the morning after that. Jonah was still there first. On the 4th morning, Nathan found him sitting on an overturned bucket, rubbing his bad knee with one hand and tightening a harness buckle with the other. "You always make a man race you to his own chores?" Nathan asked. Jonah looked up. "Only when he sleeps late." It was the first joke, dry as kindling, gone almost before it landed. Nathan carried it with him all day. Weeks passed that way. Not friendship, not yet. Work. Work is safer than talk for men who have carried too much. They cut hay, reset posts, mended the roof over the corn crib, dug a new drainage run behind the kitchen garden because Jonah had noticed stormwater pooling near the foundation. Nathan saw, day by day, what his mother had seen first. Jonah did not enter a place as if he owned it. He entered it as if he was listening. He noticed where a hinge dragged, where a hoof favored one side, where soil held too much water, where a widow paused before lifting something too heavy, and then lifted it anyway, because there had been no one to stop her. And he answered those things without speech. That was his language. In September, the West Meadow gave them oats heavier than any crop Nathan remembered from boyhood. Not a miracle crop, no golden fields sent by heaven. Just the result of lime spread at the right time. Seed kept dry, weeds cut early, and a man willing to do the dull work before anyone could admire the outcome. They sold enough in town to pay the banknote. Not delay it, not argue it down, pay it. Rebecca folded the receipt into the family Bible with hands that trembled once and then went still. That night, Nathan found Jonah outside by the gate, the same gate, the one that had stopped him in the road. Jonah had one hand on the latch, testing it though nothing was wrong. "You thinking of leaving?" Nathan asked. Jonah did not turn. Men get used to leaving before they're asked. "You been asked?" "No." "Then don't practice." A long quiet passed between them. Jonah looked down at the latch. "Your father built the first one?" "With me holding nails I kept dropping. Wasn't built badly. It leaned for 12 years. Most things lean if nobody has time to come back to them." Nathan stepped beside him. From the road, the farm looked different than it had when he returned. But now he could read the difference better. It was not Jonah's farm. It was not simply Bell Farm either. It had become a place made by absence and return, by a widow's refusal to surrender, by a stranger's need to be useful, and by a son learning that home was not less his because someone else had loved it while he was gone. "My mother says supper's ready," Nathan said. Jonah nodded, but did not move, so Nathan added the words plainly. "She set 3 plates." Jonah's hand left the gate. That winter, no one slept in the storage room. Nathan moved his father's old tools from the small back room to the barn, swept the floor, patched the window, and put in a rope bed he had built himself. When Rebecca saw it, she said nothing. She only brought clean quilts. Jonah stood in the doorway looking at the room for so long that Nathan finally said, "It's a room, not a church." Jonah answered, "I've had less of both." And that was all. Years later, people in the valley would ask how Rebecca Bell kept her farm through the war years. Some expected a story about luck. Some expected a story about grit. Some expected Nathan to say he had come home just in time. He never did. He always told them the truth. A man without a place came to a gate that needed mending. A woman without enough hands gave him one evening's work. A son came home ready to find ruins and found proof instead. Proof that land remembers care. Proof that family can grow in the space grief leaves behind. Proof that sometimes a home is not the place that waits untouched. Sometimes it is the place someone keeps alive until you are ready to return.